Alright, Crypto Millennial here, bringing you another video in the Avalanche space. This time we're looking at a project called Ascenders. It's a play-to-earn game built on the Avalanche ecosystem, and we're going to really just understand this together. We'll look at the tokenomics, the game mechanics, briefly touch on the team, the roadmap. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Let's get stuck into it. What is Ascenders then? To briefly summarize it in a few words, Ascenders is a sci-fi fantasy open world action RPG with a fully decentralized, player-driven economy. It's built on the Unreal Engine on top of the Avax ecosystem. If you're a gamer, I'm sure you're familiar with the Unreal Engine. There's been tons and tons of games built on that. Next, we're going to launch into the tokenomics. The Ascenders ecosystem then is built around two key tokens. You've got the governance token, which is AGC ticker. You're going to be able to use this to stake and also vote in a DAO format on the direction of the game. You can decide the meta yourself, vote on proposals, that sort of stuff. Then obviously we've got the currency token, ticker symbol GG. These are the glow gems. You're going to be able to use these gems to trade within the Ascenders economy, buy land, buy items, all of that stuff is going to be bought using the glow gems. The final part on tokenomics then that I wanted to touch on is the FAQs. So the first one, the protocol Ascenders is built on. Obviously, we know that's Avalanche. How many tokens will Ascenders feature? We know they're doing a 2-token setup in their game. So I'm not going to touch on that again. Are the token supplies capped? So AGC is capped at 1 billion token supply. And the Glow Gems token is not going to have a cap. But they're going to implement lots of burn mechanisms and opportunities to control the supply. This is very common with the games that we have at the moment, that in-game currency token always has an infinite supply and they need to sort of manage that. Will you use Avax subnets then? Very interesting. They're planning to use subnets, they say here, to keep transaction fees low. Obviously, as we know, anyone that's used a subnet, this is interesting because what we don't know is, are they going to use their own subnet or are they going to use one of the existing ones like the Swimmers network or the one from DeFi Kingdoms? What is the governance token used for? We talked about that, so I'm not going to cover that again. And then when is the token generation event for that AGC governance token? So what they're saying is that AGC tokens will be released in May 2022 via a public sale, and more details are going to be announced soon. So it's not really that far away, to be honest. Onto the game mechanics then. So the story of this game is going to take you, the player, through large overworld. And below that, there's also going to be some more challenging dungeons. So on the overworld then, this is going to be made up of loads of different terrain. So this is like the main map, and it's all going to have different challenges depending on what areas you're in. Maybe there's a desert area, a snow area, that sort of stuff. And within those areas, there's going to be specific enemies and resources to that. And basically, then you as the player are going to be exploring that, getting the items, which are NFTs that can be minted, and providing resources to landowners to allow them to build on top of that. The dungeons then are going to be deep below the main overworld. These dungeons are going to be like periodic tournaments where you're going to be able to do player versus enemy versus player for rare resources that you can't get in the overworld. And Battle of the Land tournaments are going to be there that give you the opportunity to win some parcels of land on the main overworld. So yeah, that's interesting. The game economy then revolves around this concept of player lanes. All NFT items with stats in this game are going to need to be minted by players, and to mint an item you have to do that at a building, and these buildings are built by players on player owned land. So there's going to be land owned economy in this game, so that's interesting. And then also, back to those player lanes, different resources are only going to be available from certain lanes. So it's going to require other individuals to be playing certain lanes anyway to create enough items for the marketplace and to create demand. So that's quite interesting, that dynamic that something may only be available in the dungeons versus the overworld. So yeah, creates demand, gives a variety to this game. It's not just one way to play it. There's various different methods. Onto the player lanes then. I think this concept is really interesting. So I want to first of all go through this graphic here. So they're trying to create this positive economy loop with the player lane concept. So you're going to be exploring new resources, discovering new lands. You're going to be challenging then those lands fighting in the dungeons for loot, for specific rewards. And then you're also going to be able to expand further past where the game starts to unlock new land. And on that land, people are going to be building, constructing on top of that, processing resources, turning that into items. And then finally, those items are going to be traded between players. There's going to be that market growth that drives the demand in certain resources. Maybe specific resources are really scarce, so they go for a lot of money, or they're really difficult to get hold of. The final part then on player lanes is, what are the player lanes? Because I haven't touched on those. So there's going to be 3 player lanes: the explorer lane, the fighter lane, and the builder lane. So the explorer lane is for the more casual players who enjoy farming and steady progress. You're going to be sort of harvesting resources from the overworld, collecting those rewards, and then sort of finishing the campaign and doing farming quests. Those resources that you collect can only be found in the overworld, so on the top layer. The fighters then are going to be more competitive players who enjoy the leaderboards, that ranking system, and the social status. They're going to be searching for rarest gear, obsessing over certain builds, challenging other dungeons in search of really rare resources. Those resources that they find can only be found in those dungeons. The builders then are going to be the metagame players who like playing the economy. They're going to own the land market, choose which buildings are most efficient to maximize their ROI on the space that they have. These buildings then are what improves resources and are used by other players. So they're going to be kind of understanding what is best, what people are going to use the most. That's player lanes explained then. I find that concept really interesting, that it's kind of like a real economy that Ascenders is proposing. Each player in specific lanes has their own role in the Ascenders ecosystem. I find that, really quite interesting. The game looks to be varied. You don't have to play it a certain way to enjoy it. So you can do whatever you want and have your own sort of role in this Ascenders ecosystem. To quickly cover the roadmap then, where we're at right now is around that Q1, Q2 area. So upcoming in the next quarter, we've got the token generation event. We've got the Ascenders DAO launch, the gameplay and economy prototyping. It's also going to be deployed on an Avax subnet, so it'll be interesting to see which one that is. And they're also going to be designing the world build. Into the future then, some key milestones in Q3 2022. They're going to lock the game world layout, so we're going to know exactly what that is, and I assume that will be communicated. There's also going to be a land event sale in Q4 of this year. Then looking further ahead into 2023, so in Q3 of 2023, you're going to have Ascenders Alpha, and there's also going to be extensive testing and this interesting thing about the Genesis Hero Sale event. So I assume that's where you're able to buy the NFTs that are playable in the game. And then in Q4 of 2023, they're going to close the beta testing and launch the game. Onto the team behind Ascenders then is this group called Legendary Foundry Games. They were founded in 2021 by a group of individuals that we're going to go through below, and their aim was to build the world's first AAA crypto game. So the team makeup then, you've got Jackson, who's the CEO and co-founder. He's a crypto native entrepreneur, and he's also the co-founder of Paramount Capital. You've then got Will Davis. He's the head of development. He's got 35 years game dev experience, worked on 200 plus games, experiences at the likes of Ubisoft and EA, and some notable games he's worked on are titles like Ghost Recon. And then finally, you've got Chris Rothwell. He's the design director, 20-year game dev veteran. He's a lead designer and is a BAFTA award winner. He's worked at Rockstar North, so some of the titles he's worked on is the GTA series. Games like San Andreas, GTA 4, GTA 3, Vice City, they're some of the games that he's worked on. So it's quite interesting to see. Obviously, this team has got real enterprise level experience. So it'll be interesting to see how this game develops and whether it will be the first globally adopted crypto game. Finally then, onto the Ascenders investors. You can see from this graphic, it's pretty evident that Ascenders aren't short of investors. There was also on Yahoo Finance an article in March saying that Ascenders had closed their private investment round and they'd managed to raise $6.4 million US. So I'll leave this article in the description below if you want to read that for more information. So back to the graphic then, You got the names like Merit Circle, Guildfy, Avocado Guild, those popular names that offer scholarships in games like Axie, Infinity, that sort of stuff. You got the likes of Paramount Capital, Definance Capital. Go down further then, you've got Colony. They're an Avax ecosystem accelerator. They also recently announced that they were helping support WM Metaverse, another Avax game that I recently did a video on. As well as that, you've also got Avalanche, and I think it's reasonable to assume that the AGC token, the Ascenders token, will launch on the Avalanche platform, but obviously I don't know for sure. I'm just making an assumption, putting two and two together, but we'll see in due course whether this does happen. And then finally, you've got Z Prime Capital. Just wanted to pick them out because they're also an investor in Krabadas. So it's quite interesting to see some of these names are interconnected, investing in various different games. That's everything I wanted to cover on Ascenders today then. I hope you enjoyed the video, feel more informed about it and understand exactly how this game's going to work and the mechanics behind it. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, comment, share it with your network. It really does help. Thank you very much. Obviously, nothing's financial advice. It's just me sharing my opinions and trying to give you the information around this game. Thanks so much for the support. Speak to you soon.